Hello, everyone, and welcome back to He Knows. Thank you for joining us. My name is Chris. I'm your host, and tonight we're going to talk about the progress that's being made by the Trump administration. We're going to see how that kind of ties in with some of the things that Miles Gould warned us about way back when, and we're probably going to try and have a little fun doing it. We're going to start off tonight by a series of a tweet thread that was on X by Rod Martin, and this is all about Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi is keeping her word, and any instance of political weaponization of the justice system isn't going to be safe from Pam Bondi. So neither Democrats nor Republicans are safe from being targeted, and that's a good thing. Here's an example. The Southern District of New York. New York City Mayor Eric Adams was clearly targeted for political revenge by the CCP-owned Biden administration. The very moment that Eric Adams criticized the Biden administration for their actions or inactions at the border, the southern border or the northern border, either border, he instantly became a target for attack. They instantly dragged out a prosecutor and determined that they were going to set charges against Eric Adams. Now, was there any actual charges? I don't believe there was. I think all of this is exactly like all of the nonsensical litigation against Trump in that every ounce of it is fabricated. Now, I am not a fan of Eric Adams. I don't think that he's done a very good job, but the very moment Eric Adams goes off the reservation and criticizes the Biden administration, look out, here comes the lawfare. And that is exactly what happened. Now, the Bribham administration, in all their glory, immediately started targeting him by the Southern District of New York, and the prosecutors tried to tie him up in court to get him to shut up. Magically, the prosecutor who brought the case against Adams suddenly showed up on a short list of potential candidates for the Attorney General of the United States of America had the disastrous results of a Harris administration come to pass. So, sounds like a lot of pay to play. You do what we want, we're going to reward you, because we need these people to shut up. We want things to go our way, and otherwise, no play. So then, Danielle Sassoon, who was the acting U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, resigned her post rather than follow orders by the Attorney General, by the Trump administration, to drop the case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Now, she refused to do this based on principles. Now, I'm kind of curious as to what principles they are. I'm guessing they aren't the same principles that you and I might have. Trump had placed her as acting AG in the Southern District of New York the very second day he was in office for the second time around, on July 21st. And then she just walked away, resigned her job February 13th, so just this week. 6 other DOJ officials have also quit, implying that they would rather lose their careers than stop targeting the Democrats' enemies list. And in other locations, 15 plus other senior DOJ officials also cut and run. Jack Smith's team is gone, which couldn't have happened fast enough in my opinion. And the January 6th temporary prosecutors are also gone. This is a blessing. It's a blessing that we've gotten rid of these lawfare attorneys, the prosecutors, looking for a reason, looking for a way to try and shut people up because they're saying things that people on their side don't like. Now, it's not hate speech. It's speech that the Democrats hate. And that's why they want to shut it down. They want to call it misinformation. They want to call it lies. They want to call it whatever they can get away with in order to make it appear through the media, through social networking, through whatever, that none of this is really good stuff to be listening to. And we know what they did with COVID. We know what they did with ivermectin. And it's all just starting to really, really come out. The FBI is on notice as well. Miami and D.C. field office chiefs who led the Mar-a-Lago raid have been fired, and cash isn't even in place yet. The senators that were supposed to be passing to confirm Kash Patel as the new FBI director, decided that it was a much better idea to go have lunch with a dictator, Vladimir Zelensky. I guess they wanted to make sure that money laundering was going to keep going. Hopefully not. We know USAID's pretty much been shut down, so I think that's all going to end. Acting FBI director who defied orders to name the J6 investigators is likely to go next. Let's hope so. So Pam Bondi is cleaning house and has made it clear that there will be no more politically motivated cases. The swamp is draining and the deep state players are just simply disappearing. What does this mean for Brother Miles Guo? Well, we know that his case was kangaroo tried in the Southern District of New York. We know that most of the charges that he was up against, he was acquitted of. There were a couple of conspiracy charges that don't make any sense, but they still convicted him on. You know, what do they say about a grand jury that they would convict a ham sandwich if they got the opportunity? It's all just show. It's a circus. But what does this actually mean for Miles Guo? Well, as I see it, and this is truly my opinion, if the FBI raid and prosecution of Brother Miles, I see it as nothing more than politically motivated. The CCP wanted their pound of flesh, and they had paid off the CCP-owned Biden administration. So the Biden administration pretty much had to put up or shut up. They needed to deliver the goods. And in this case, the CCP wanted their goods, and their goods was Brother Miles. Let's hope that they take a good, long look at these cases of Miles Guo, of Yvette Wang, and let's hope that they do the right thing. I don't believe that there was any probable cause, not enough, nothing that screamed that people's investments were in danger. So let's hope that when we get the new head of the Southern District of New York, that he works in conjunction with Pam Bondi, and they're going to have to go through every case that has been through the Southern District of New York in the last 4 years, it seems to me, and at least have a cursory look at it. And then once they decide, well, this one definitely could be politically motivated, they need to have an in-depth look at those particular cases so that they know whether or not they were on the level or not. Tulsi Gabbard also in. Only one Republican voted against the confirmation of Tulsi Gabbard, and that was Mitch McConnell. Yeah, he was wheeled in his wheelchair because, he's had some health problems lately, and he's not done anything else in the Senate, but he was wheeled in so that he could vote against Tulsi Gabbard. Now, fortunately, the vote was 51-47 in favor of Tulsi, so now she is the Director of National Intelligence. I think that this is a great thing. Now, keep in mind, Mitch McConnell comes from Kentucky. Trump won Kentucky with 64% of the vote. It wasn't even close. Now, it seems to me, with that kind of a mandate coming from Kentucky, that Mr. Mitch McConnell, Senator Mitch McConnell, I use that term loosely, probably should be taking a good inventory of where his state's coming from and do the right thing and get on board. But we don't really expect much from him because he's always been that way. Top objective for Tulsi Gabbard as DNI appears to be shutting down U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine. we know that there are some 25 to 30 U.S. funded biolabs operating in Ukraine. Even at the height of the Ukraine-Russia war, these labs are still continuing. It doesn't really seem to make any sense. Although, much like the U.S. funded the biolabs in Wuhan, China through U.S. aid, that was $53 million. The DOD gave $42 million. All told, between, a little more than half a dozen agencies, it was over $100 million that was donated to the CCP, directly to the CCP, for quote-unquote funding for the virus, funding for gain of function. So why are they working on these deadly pathogens? Well, it seems like they've got more plans. RFK Jr., only in a couple of days now and is already making big waves, fantastic waves, has come out with his Make America Healthy Again. And the idea that he has is to get rid of and ban the worst of these agricultural chemicals that are already prohibited in so many other countries. It's very crazy. If you look at a bottle of Heinz ketchup, one that is produced in America for the American market and one that is produced for the European market, the ingredients list is so much different. So many carcinogenic additives are in the product that you get sold in America that it's just disgusting. And it's not just ketchup. It is so many products, anything with processed food. You know what they say? If you're going shopping at the supermarket, only shop on the outside of the market. That's where the fresh meats are. That's where the fresh dairy is. That's where the fresh fruits are. Stay away from a peel. We know that as a Bill Gates bioweapon in itself. But stay away from the internal aisles. That's where all your processed foods are. And stay out of the freezer section because that looks pretty horrific too. So other things for the Make America Healthy Again program, they're going to completely reform the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which that includes rewriting regulations to give small operators a break. They're not going to make them they don't want things to be unhealthy, but they're not going to put in so many regulations for the sake of regulations in order to make it impossible for them to bring their goods to market. The small family farmers hopefully will get a break, be able to start producing food, be able to feed locals. If you're in Iowa, be able to feed Iowans. If you're in Kansas, be able to feed Kansas. Be able to get back to that, and hopefully we don't have the food shortages that everybody seems to keep talking about. That we just saw where Costco had completely stopped selling eggs. But then again, you see people going in and you buy in 30, 40 dozen or 30 or 40 packages, which is actually at Costco. It's 2 dozen eggs in a single package. So 30 or 40, 2 dozen count packages of eggs at a time, just because, it's the same thing that we saw with toilet paper during the COVID height. And this is the kind of thing we got to avoid. Only buy what you need, folks. If you buy just a little bit extra, that's understandable, but don't go crazy. All right. And then finally, encourage sustainable, regenerative farming that can build soil and replenish aquifers. So you're not growing the same crop all of the time over and over and over again. You cycle things through. Maybe you'll grow beans this time, corn the next time, something else the next time. Each one of these crops tends to take something specific out of the soil. And if you give it a chance to recover, you're going to have better yields. You're going to have a better way of feeding our population. In addition to that, RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is going to be putting together a new vaccine damage database. Now, there was at the CDC, I believe, a vaccine injury database that people, quote unquote, voluntarily made additions to. Now, all told, that seemed to catch maybe 1% of all the problems that people had with vaccines. We know that Gardasil, that vaccine that they give young women when right before puberty, listen, the reason for that vaccine just doesn't make any sense. Those children, and they are children, are in no danger of getting cervical cancer, yet they're giving them a vaccine at that age, and it winds up harming them more than it doesn't. It's a horrible, horrible situation. And so this new vaccine damage database is going to track all vaccines. It'll track the COVID vaccine, which we know there are massive problems with. It'll track the Gardasil vaccine. It'll track all of them. And it's so interesting that when I was born, I think the number of vaccines that I received was less than 20. And nowadays, before a child is 3 years old, they're being stuck by needles probably around 60 times. That's a lot of very, very bad chemicals going into a very young child. It can't possibly be safe. So they're also going to be investigating COVID crimes. Now, this may include the CDC. I hope that it includes social media, because we know how quickly social media shut down anybody that either A, complained about damaging results from taking the vaccine. We also know that they shut down anybody that offered an alternative treatment, that anything like that wound up being a problem for these folks, and social media just shut them down. Generally just disabled their accounts altogether. For example, I already know that this show is completely off YouTube just because they really don't like what I say. They don't like alternate opinions. They want you to be of one song, and that is it. They want you to have one marching order, follow that, nobody deviates, and that's just not the way human beings work. Well, it is in dictator-run societies, the place where they have 100% vote for a particular candidate. Nobody's allowed to have an alternate opinion. But here in America, we are built on free speech. And it seems to me that if they're operating, these social media platforms, if they have been operating and suppressing free speech, then they are operating outside their boundaries. That's just my opinion. But Big Pharma could be in trouble as well. As a matter of fact, RFK Jr. revealed that he and President Trump and President Trump's DOJ will be launching a RICO investigation to prosecute the collusion between medical boards, medical journals, and Big Pharma. Again, we see these people all speaking with one voice, all saying, oh, you must have this, you must have that. No, you don't need to operate that way. They are not there to help you. They are there to sell you. They are there to control you. And we can't let that happen. So hopefully that RICO case also includes social media, which I mentioned just a moment ago, because they were very complicit in suppressing anything that they wanted to categorize as misinformation. But, this is all stuff that many of us knew 4 years ago. Brother Miles himself outlined this in many ways. Now, for a moment, and it's even more than that, I'm going to go back to 2019 right now. I did a series called Gain of Function Between the Sheets, where we talked about Fauci and Dr. Wang Yang, who at the time had just finished her schooling at the Wuhan Institute, or let's see, she got her undergrad degree in China and then came over to America to finish. Oh, yeah, she got her PhD in China and master's degree at the University of Colorado, where I suspect is when she got involved with Dr. Fauci somewhere. And we know they really got involved. As a matter of fact, they had that love child. It was the COVID virus. And look at all the damage it did. One of the worst love childs in history. But Dr. Wang Yongyi, she took over the Wuhan Institute of Virology in 2012, where she became the Director General in the lab. And became the Director General of the lab in 2018. Now, the fun starts in September of 2019. The COVID-19 virus sequence was deleted from the lab's computer. Now, this is a computer system that a lot of labs throughout the world had access to, but the COVID-19 virus was completely deleted. All information about this virus was completely deleted. The lab was then taken over by the Army, the PLA. So it wasn't even Dr. Wang Yongyi at that point that was controlling anything anymore. And finally, really questionable, is that the ventilation system was completely reworked in the lab. Now, it seems to me that a level 4 biolab in Wuhan, China, very, very high population area, it seems to me that if you're reworking the ventilation system, you've got one of two things going on. You know that you've got a lab with a faulty ventilation system, which means pathogens could be escaping out into the wild, which would make sense because we know that a lot of people died over in Wuhan and it spread from Wuhan to other provinces, other cities, and created a horrific scene over in China. We remember the stories that we used to see where the essentially the ovens were going 24/7, and you could literally smell it as they got rid of the bodies. They had to get rid of them that way because they were riddled with infection. Horrific, horrific scene. So they completely deleted the sequence, and I'm guessing that they did this possibly for plausible deniability. It seems like the FBI or the PLA, I almost said FBI, probably the same people in some cases. It seems that the PLA taking over and the ventilation system they're getting work, did they actually create this to be a bomb that was going to go off when they press the right button? I'm thinking it's quite possible. Now, we've got another timeline that Brother Miles has put together for us, and if we could put up this photo, we'll walk through that. This is the virus, vaccine, and the revelations of truth by Brother Miles Guo. So, February 3rd of 2020, and we already talked about 2019. That information also comes from Brother Miles, but this timeline doesn't quite go back that far. And I felt it was very, very important for us to put that context in so that we could see how the rest of this possibly flows. So, February 3rd, 2020, Miles Guo revealed in a live that a Chinese expert and professor, Guo Diyin, I probably said that wrong, I apologize, is preparing to conduct a biochemical war. Now, on February 8th of 2020, Miles Guo revealed that the virus is a CCP biological weapon. And now there's no doubt that we know that Miles was talking about the COVID virus. So, February 26th, the CCP's first batch of vaccines was rolled out. How in the world? We know that vaccine R&D can take minimum of 10 years. How did they wind up having a vaccine ready to roll out that quickly? They had just released the virus into the wild. And then all of a sudden they've got a vaccine ready. It doesn't fly. And we know that that vaccine ended up being an mRNA vaccine. mRNA in order to put that into our DNA. So anybody that got that vaccine, I'm sorry, look for protocols on how to clean your body because they're out there. Very important. So March 16th of 2020, the CCP's vaccine was approved for clinical trials. So the first batches rolled off on the 26th, and less than 20-ish days later, they've approved it for clinical trials. Now, April 27th, Miles Gould warned that it is impossible to have a real vaccine. And that is what I also just said. There's no way that research could have been done that fast. What were they doing? Parallel creating the virus and creating the vaccine at the same time? I don't know. So, November 10th of 2020, Miles Gould reiterated his warning. Do not trust the vaccines. Do not trust the vaccines. And you know what? I see this meme all the time. There is nobody on the planet that regrets not taking the vaccine. Nobody. 2021, April 21st, Miles Gould stated there is an antidote, but no real vaccine. So is this what they're calling a vaccine? And maybe that's why here in America, when they would open up the boxes that this pharmaceutical was contained in, and they're supposed to have this disclosure piece of paper, and it's literally a piece of paper that is 3 feet by 4 feet and didn't have anything written on it. Now, normally with a drug disclosure form like that, it is covered top to bottom, front and back with information about it, about whatever pharmaceutical is in there, whatever drug is in there. And with these vaccines, that paper was completely blank on both sides. There was nothing there, yet it was still 3 feet by 4 feet. Thanks for killing the trees. All right. So 2021, 8/26, Miles Gould described the virus as a bullet and the vaccine as the bomb. So the bullet hits you. And I know a lot of people who got sick with COVID, and those that were able to stay home, care for themselves, use alternative recommended methods for taking care of yourself, like the use of ivermectin, other drugs like that, they had a lot less to worry about and were able to recover quite quickly. Whereas those poor people that wound up going into the hospital with COVID ended up on respirators, ended up on remdesivir, the Anthony Fauci drug that was denied multiple times. He tried to push remdesivir in Africa to combat one of the most deadly viruses on the planet. And it killed nearly everybody that it came in contact with. And that's what happened here as well. It was horrific. 50%, I think it was 50% of the people that took it passed away. So the vaccine is the bomb. With this mRNA technology that they used, they had all kinds of problems. They had heart myocarditis. They had blood clots from head to toe. They literally had people with tinnitus, the ringing in the ears. They had people getting strokes. We watched, and I don't know that this was the cause, but when I see an athlete at the top of his game in the NFL, right after a hit that in normal football you wouldn't think anything of it, and he just went down like a sack of potatoes. Now, they claim that he recovered. Hopefully he did. I don't honestly know if I believe it or not, but what can you do? They're going to come up with their own stories. But this is the bomb that they're talking about, the myocarditis, the blood clotting, the strokes that people are having, the Bell's palsy. There are numerous side effects that are life-changing. People just becoming in a state where they can't even get out of bed. Many people lost their livelihoods. Many people lost their lives because of this vaccine. And that is what he means by the vaccine is the bomb. So 8/30/2021, Miles Guo revealed that artemisinin, another one of those fabulous medications, is the antidote. So people were using artemisinin, people were using fenbendazole, people were using ivermectin. You know what all of these are? All of these are antiparasitics. All of these are drugs that have been on the market for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Now, the problem with the medication that's been on the market that long, and with ivermectin actually was given, I think it was given the Nobel Peace Prize for medicine. I'd have to check on that, but I believe that to be true. I'll be checking on that, though. And the problem with those medications is that the patents have all timed out. Nobody can actually make any big money from it, but something like remdesivir, they can charge thousands and you got a 50% chance of being dead. I don't think the price is worth it. All right. So our last point here. November 3rd, 2021, Miles Guo reiterated that the virus is merely a means while the vaccine is the ultimate goal. Now, what he means by that is that they wanted the entire world to take that vaccine, to get inoculated and get this mRNA technology into your body. It's all about control. So hopefully, this is what RFK Jr., as the Secretary of Health and Human Services under the Trump administration, is going to do a RICO investigation and start investigating all of these companies, big pharma, the big media associated with it. And then there's one more thing that I've heard them start talking about. How many of you get, like I do, get absolutely disgusted when you see on a TV show that you're watching, about half or more of the ads in the show are for medication? Now, first of all, I'm of the opinion that pharmaceuticals should never advertise on TV. Why do they even have an advertising budget? I know their goal is to have this hit people's eyes and say, oh, I have that symptom. Oh, I have that symptom. So you have the hypochondriacs then run to the doctor and say, doctor, I think I need such and such a brand new medication that's on the market. They're talking about getting this action to stop and taking ads off of TV. Now, one of the bad side effects, in my opinion, it's good, is all those advertising dollars is going to really, really hurt big media. You're going to take away the funding, just like they've taken away the funding through USAID to all those ridiculous programs that were never actually going to benefit the United States of America. Taking away the funding for big pharma is a fantastic idea. These medications cost too much. Is it because they're spending so much on ad time? Is it because they're paying for way too many commercials? Definitely a possibility. The other possibility is that it just may be because they totally screwed up the insurance industry here in America with Obamacare, but that is another 2-hour discussion. All right, so on to other interesting topics, and we're going to talk a little bit now about Argentina. Trump ordered the U.S. to exit the WHO on his second day in office. Actually, it was a first day after his inauguration. It was January 21st. And Argentina has now followed suit and pulled out of the World Health Organization as well. Milei, who is the president of Argentina, gave some excellent reasons for Argentina's exit. The WHO promoted indefinite quarantines without scientific backing. Now, this is coming from Milei himself. Other disastrous side effects in Argentina was the kids kept out of school, workers lost income, businesses destroyed, and 130,000 lives lost despite following the WHO's guidance. That sounds really, really, really familiar. Almost exactly what we had happen here in the United States of America. Unfortunately, the number of lives is substantially different. But those other items, our children could possibly never recover from the disastrous year and a half that they stayed out of school and in that time frame when they locked everything down. But so here's the question, though, right? Who is really at fault? We know the leader of the WHO is, I'm going to butcher this name, Tedros Ghebreyesus. Sorry about that. We'll just call him Tedros from here on out. But did you know that Tedros also has a Chinese name? We learned this from Brother Miles. Tedros' Chinese name is Tan Wei, W-E-I, and was given him by none other than little Wang Qishan. So it seems to me that there is a lot of backpatting going on between the CCP and the WHO. Now, here's another interesting part. As we discussed last week, the USAID funded gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Lab of Virology, Wuhan Institute of Virology, this likely started when the research was moved to Wuhan sometime around 2015 to 2017. I'm not sure on the date. But what's interesting is that the USAID had funded the Wuhan lab with some $53 million. The DOD also funded the gain of function to the tune of $42 million. And again, between all of those agencies that were directly funding the CCP, it was to the tune of north of $100 million. Now, here's the crazy part. You know, with this money, all went directly to the CCP, and then the CCP turned around and patted the pockets of good old Tedros, good old Tan Wei, in order to get him to bend the knee and do their bidding. Now, what's interesting to me, there he is. There's Tedros, and there is President Xi Jinping. Seems a little suspect, don't you think? Now, what's interesting is in 2022 to 2023, the United States contributed $1.2 billion to the World Health Organization. You think that would buy a little respect? Especially since Germany, being the second highest donor, was only, and I'm saying only, but it was in the 800 millions is what they donated. Germany did their quote unquote fair share and donated $800 million. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, what were they funding? But they were also into the tune of $800 million. This is all directly from the WHO's website. That's where all that money went. So the U.S. funds the WHO with $1.28 billion. The U.S. funds the CCP and for gain of function research to the tune of $100 million. Some of that money, don't know exactly how much. Maybe Tedros will come clean and show us his bank accounts. I doubt it. But some of that money found its way most likely into Tedros's pockets. And of course, that meant that Tedros bent the knee and pulled some bad stuff. They put the interests first, or they put the CCP interests first. That was first and foremost of exactly what happened. Oh, well, we've got to cover for the CCP. We can't really let people know yet that the virus was released by the CCP in Wuhan. It ignored Taiwan's early COVID warning. and basically allowed the whole world to fall apart, in my opinion, because of what happened with COVID and most specifically with the vaccine. All right. So 3 more things that I kind of wanted to bring up tonight. Number 1 is, and this is a very, very happy thing for me anyway, it looks like next week the IRS may be losing as many as 15,000 agents. 15,000 agents. This is a very, very good thing, as in those agents won't be able to audit you. Unemployment in Washington, D.C. seems to be hitting somewhere around 36%. I saw recently that housing prices have gone down 8%, or somewhere around $120,000 in the last year. Google searches in DC, the trends are getting kind of interesting. These Google search trends are including things like criminal defense lawyer, RICO law, Swiss bank, offshore bank, wire money, IBAN, which is an acronym that stands for the International Bank Account Number, and that number is used to efficiently move money internationally. So why is this happening? Well, again, we kind of go back to Doge. Elon Musk may just start looking into how people with a base salary, and I'm talking about Congress again, how people with a base salary of $174,000 a year and don't have already huge wealth, but suddenly those people turn into multimillionaires. In one case, $68 million. Now, how in the world do you go from $174,000 a year as a base salary? Now, somebody like Nancy Pelosi, who we know clearly is guilty of insider trading, at least that's my thinking anyway, how is she correct on every stock trade? It's just beyond bizarre. And we know that Nancy's got a little bit of extra income coming in because she is Speaker Emeritus. And as Speaker of the House, you get roughly $50,000 more a year. But how do these people become multimillionaires? It doesn't make any sense. And so finally tonight, just a small update on Doge and the savings that we are experiencing from them. I got maybe 15 of them here. I'm not going to read them all, just some of the highlights. $10 million for Mozambique voluntary medical circumcision. How does that further American interests? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. $2.3 million for strengthening independent voices in Cambodia. Not sure. Again, it is my opinion that all of these are slush funds that they're working from to either topple governments or prop up governments elsewhere in the world. And it's essentially a huge slush fund for the CIA. A couple of others. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. $14 million. Social cohesion in Mali. What is social cohesion? Oh, and $19 million for biodiversity conversation in Nepal. Elon, from me personally, thank you. Thank you for saving the United States taxpayers huge, huge amounts of money. Well, that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for spending time with me here. And again, if you have any comments, I love to interface with you guys. Send us a comment on where you're watching, and I'll do my best to respond to everybody that sends a comment. Thank you. Good night.
他们的恐惧是我们的武器，我们的胜利。谢谢了，兄弟姐妹们，你们健身了吗？行动，行动，行动！中共，你完了！Take it down！ CC